Rising above the rocky shores of Newport, Rhode Island, the Breakers is more than a mansion. It is a symbol of power, wealth, ambition, and excess during America's Gilded Age. Built by the Vanderbilt family, this 70-room estate was designed to rival the great palaces of Europe and to announce one thing clearly: status mattered. But behind the marble walls, gold-leaf ceilings, and grand halls lies a deeper story. A story of fire and rebirth, cutting-edge technology, hidden servant lives, and fierce social competition among America's richest families. From its breathtaking architecture and European artistry to the women who shaped its legacy and the innovations that were far ahead of their time, the Breakers reflects an era when wealth knew few limits. In this video, we'll explore 15 of the most fascinating topics surrounding the Breakers, from its dramatic history and design to its role in society, preservation, and pop culture. Together, these stories reveal how one mansion became an enduring icon of American luxury and ambition. Welcome to the Breakers. The story of the Breakers begins with one of the most powerful families in American history, the Vanderbilts. Their rise from modest beginnings to extraordinary wealth mirrors the rapid economic transformation of the United States during the 19th century. At the center of this legacy stands Cornelius Vanderbilt, known as the Commodore, whose business instincts and relentless ambition laid the foundation for an empire that would reshape American transportation and industry. Cornelius Vanderbilt was born in 1794 to a family of limited means. He left school at a young age and began working on boats in New York Harbor, quickly demonstrating a sharp understanding of competition and profit. By dominating the steamboat industry and later investing heavily in railroads, Vanderbilt amassed one of the largest fortunes in the world. By the time of his death in 1877, his wealth was estimated at over $100 million, an almost unimaginable sum at the time. While Cornelius built the fortune, it was his descendants who transformed that wealth into visible symbols of power and prestige. His grandson, Cornelius Vanderbilt II, inherited much of the family fortune and sought to establish the Vanderbilts as America's answer to European aristocracy. For him, wealth alone was not enough. It needed to be displayed, recognized, and respected. Newport, Rhode Island, already a fashionable summer retreat for elite families, became the perfect stage. The original Breakers was constructed in 1878 as a wooden mansion, but tragedy struck in 1892 when a devastating fire destroyed it. Rather than retreat, Cornelius Vanderbilt II seized the opportunity to rebuild on an even grander scale. The new Breakers, completed in 1895, was designed to be fireproof, monumental, and unmistakably elite. It was not simply a summer home. It was a declaration of dominance in American high society. The Vanderbilt legacy embedded in the Breakers goes beyond architecture. It reflects the family's desire to legitimize new money in a society that still revered old European titles. By importing European artisans, materials, and styles, the Vanderbilts aligned themselves with centuries of aristocratic tradition. Every marble column, gilded ceiling, and ocean-facing terrace reinforced the message that the Vanderbilts belonged at the top. At the same time, the mansion exposes the contradictions of the family legacy. While the Vanderbilts embodied innovation, industry, and progress, their lifestyle also highlighted extreme inequality. The Breakers required hundreds of servants to operate, illustrating how vast wealth depended on invisible labor. The family's grandeur stood in sharp contrast to the realities faced by most Americans during the same era. Today, the Breakers remains the most enduring symbol of the Vanderbilt name. While the family fortune eventually declined, the mansion preserves their influence and ambition in stone and marble. It stands as a lasting reminder of how one family's legacy helped define the Gilded Age, and how wealth, power, and image became inseparable in America's rise as an economic superpower. The Breakers is one of the most powerful physical expressions of Gilded Age excess, a period in American history defined by explosive economic growth, industrial expansion, and unprecedented concentrations of wealth. Spanning roughly from the 1870s to the early 1900s, the Gilded Age was a time when a small elite enjoyed extraordinary luxury, while much of the population struggled with poverty, labor, unrest, and economic instability. The Breakers stands as both a celebration of success and a stark reminder of inequality. The term Gilded Age, coined by Mark Twain, refers to something that is gold on the surface but less noble underneath. This idea is embodied perfectly in the Breakers. From the outside, the mansion dazzles with grandeur, towering chimneys, oceanfront terraces, and Renaissance-inspired stonework. Inside, nearly every surface is adorned with marble, rare woods, intricate carvings, frescoed ceilings, and gold leaf. The house was not merely luxurious, it was intentionally overwhelming. For the Vanderbilt family and their peers, excess was a form of competition. Newport's summer season became a stage where America's wealthiest families measured their status against one another through architecture, parties, and spectacle. Mansions were designed to outshine neighbors. Dinners were orchestrated like theatrical productions, and social events were carefully curated to reinforce hierarchy. The Breakers, as the largest and most expensive of these homes, firmly placed the Vanderbilts at the top. This excess extended beyond decoration into daily life. Lavish balls, multi-course dinners, and elaborate entertainments required immense resources. Fine china, imported linens, custom silverware, and fresh flowers filled the mansion regularly. Even rooms intended for brief use, such as hallways or sitting rooms, were treated with the same artistic attention as major spaces. Nothing was simple, and nothing was spared. Yet this opulence existed alongside harsh realities. While families like the Vanderbilts enjoyed seasonal luxury, millions of Americans worked long hours in factories, mines, and railroads, often for low wages and under dangerous conditions. Ironically, much of the wealth funding this lifestyle came directly from those industries. The Breakers thus represents a paradox, a monument to progress built on systems that deepened social divides. The contrast was not lost on contemporary critics. Journalists, writers, and reformers increasingly questioned the morality of such excess. Labor strikes, calls for regulation, and social reform movements gained momentum as public awareness grew. In this sense, the Breakers is not only a symbol of wealth, but also a marker of tension between privilege and hardship, celebration and critique. Today, visitors often marvel at the beauty and craftsmanship of the Breakers, but its deeper significance lies in what it reveals about its era. The mansion captures a moment when America was redefining success, struggling with inequality, and learning the costs of unchecked wealth. As a relic of the Gilded Age, the Breakers invites admiration and reflection on how excess shaped both the nation's identity and its challenges. The Breakers is widely regarded as one of the finest examples of Gilded Age architecture in the United States, and its design was intentionally meant to rival the grand palaces of Europe. The mansion was designed by Richard Morris Hunt, America's first formally trained architect, and one of the most influential figures in shaping elite American architecture during the late 19th century. Hunt's work at the Breakers represents the peak of his career and the ambitions of the Vanderbilt family. The architectural style of the Breakers is inspired by Italian Renaissance palaces, particularly the 16th century palazzi of Genoa and Turin. This influence is immediately visible in the mansion's symmetrical facade, rusticated stonework, arched windows, and classical detailing. Unlike many American homes of the time, the Breakers was built almost entirely of stone and steel, emphasizing permanence, fire resistance, and monumental scale. Hunt designed the house as a carefully choreographed experience. The layout follows a traditional European palace plan, with a dramatic central axis leading guests through increasingly impressive spaces. Upon entering, visitors are confronted with the soaring Great Hall, which serves as the architectural and emotional heart of the mansion. From there, public rooms unfold in a logical yet theatrical sequence, each designed to impress and assert status. Every detail of the design was deliberate. Ceilings were raised to extraordinary heights to enhance grandeur, while doors, windows, and columns were oversized to reinforce the sense of power. The extensive use of marble, sourced from Italy, Africa, and South America, was not only decorative but symbolic, aligning the Vanderbilt residence with ancient and aristocratic traditions. Gold leaf, carved stone, and hand-painted murals further elevated the interior into something closer to a European palace than a private home. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Breakers' design is how architecture and decoration are inseparable. Hunt collaborated with international artists, craftsmen, and decorators to ensure that each room functioned as a cohesive work of art. Walls, ceilings, furniture, and lighting were designed together rather than added independently. This approach resulted in rooms that feel unified, immersive, and intentionally overwhelming. The exterior design is equally significant. The mansion's placement on the Newport cliffs was strategic, allowing expansive views of the Atlantic Ocean while reinforcing the sense of dominance over the landscape. Terraces, loggias, and balconies blur the line between interior and exterior spaces, creating a dialogue between architecture and nature. The house was meant to be admired from all angles, by land and sea. Architecturally, the Breakers also represents a turning point in American identity. While deeply rooted in European traditions, it was built with American confidence and resources. The mansion declares that the United States could not only match European grandeur, but surpass it in scale and ambition. In doing so, the Breakers became more than a house. It became a statement about America's arrival on the world stage. The dramatic history of the Breakers is inseparable from the story of destruction and renewal. Before the grand stone mansion that stands today, there was an earlier version of the Breakers, a large wooden house built in 1878 as a summer residence for the Vanderbilt family. Like many Gilded Age mansions of the time, it was luxurious but vulnerable, and its fate would permanently shape the future of the estate. On November 25, 1892, a catastrophic fire broke out in the original Breakers. The blaze is believed to have started accidentally, possibly caused by a faulty heating system or electrical issue. Ironically, modern conveniences that were still experimental at the time. Fueled by wooden construction, rich fabrics, and elaborate furnishings, the fire spread rapidly. Within hours, the entire mansion was reduced to ashes. Remarkably, no lives were lost, but the destruction was total. For Cornelius Vanderbilt II, the loss was devastating, but it also presented an opportunity. Rather than rebuilding modestly, he chose to rebuild bigger, stronger, and more fireproof than ever before. This decision reflected both personal resilience and the Gilded Age mindset. Setbacks were not endings, but chances to demonstrate power and wealth. The fire did not diminish the Vanderbilt status. It challenged them to surpass their former grandeur. Richard Morris Hunt was once again commissioned to design the new Breakers, this time with an emphasis on permanence and safety. The rebuilt mansion, completed in 1895, was constructed using steel framing, brick, and limestone, making it largely fire-resistant. This approach was revolutionary for residential architecture at the time and set new standards for elite homes across the country. The speed of reconstruction was itself astonishing. From the ashes of the fire to the completion of the new mansion took just 2 years, an extraordinary feat considering the complexity of the design and the global sourcing of materials and artisans. Entire rooms were fabricated in Europe, shipped across the Atlantic, and assembled on site like monumental puzzles. The rapid rebuilding reinforced the image of the Vanderbilts as unstoppable and resource-rich. Symbolically, the rebirth of the Breakers transformed the mansion into more than a residence. It became a statement of endurance. The fire could have marked the end of the Vanderbilt presence in Newport, but instead it solidified their dominance. The new Breakers was larger, more luxurious, and more technologically advanced than its predecessor, embodying the idea that wealth could overcome even disaster. Today, the story of fire and rebirth adds a dramatic layer to the Breakers' legacy. It reminds visitors that the mansion they see is not simply a product of wealth, but of determination and ambition. From destruction rose one of the most iconic homes in American history, a structure designed not just to survive, but to endure as a symbol of power long after the flames were extinguished. One of the most immediately striking aspects of the Breakers is its sheer size and scale. Everything about the mansion was designed to overwhelm, impress, and dominate. Not only the landscape of Newport, but also the social imagination of the Gilded Age. The Breakers was never meant to feel comfortable or modest. It was meant to feel monumental. In this sense, size itself became a language of power. The mansion contains approximately 70 rooms, including 48 bedrooms, 27 fireplaces, numerous sitting rooms, formal dining spaces, and extensive service areas. Unlike many grand homes that balance public and private life, the Breakers prioritizes public display. The most impressive rooms are not the bedrooms, but the communal spaces, halls, salons, and dining rooms, where guests could witness the full force of Vanderbilt wealth. These rooms were designed to host large gatherings, formal dinners, and elaborate social events that reinforced hierarchy and status. The vertical scale of the Breakers is just as important as its footprint. Ceilings soar far above human proportions, with some rooms reaching heights rarely seen in private residences. The Great Hall rises approximately 45 feet, creating a cathedral-like effect that instantly places visitors in a position of awe. Doorways are oversized, columns are massive, and staircases are wide and theatrical. The human figure feels small by comparison, a deliberate architectural choice that subtly reinforces authority. The mansion's exterior scale reinforces this same message. Built of limestone and set along the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, the Breakers commands attention from both land and sea. Its long facade, towering chimneys, and layered rooflines give the impression of a European palace rather than an American home. The house appears firmly rooted in the landscape, as though it were always meant to be there, immutable and dominant. Equally impressive is the scale of the support systems hidden behind the scenes. Entire floors and wings were dedicated to service functions: kitchens, pantries, laundries, storage rooms, and servant quarters. The Vanderbilts required a large staff, often numbering in the hundreds during the summer season, to operate the mansion smoothly. This hidden infrastructure reveals that the visible grandeur of the Breakers depended on an immense, largely invisible workforce. The scale of the Breakers also reflects the mindset of its era. During the Gilded Age, wealth was new, aggressive, and eager to prove itself. Unlike European aristocracy, which inherited status over centuries, American industrialists used size as a shortcut to legitimacy. Bigger meant better, richer, and more important. The Breakers was not just large for its time. It was intentionally excessive, ensuring that no visitor could mistake the Vanderbilt's position in society. Today, the scale of the Breakers continues to shape the visitor experience. Walking through the mansion can feel disorienting, even overwhelming, as room after room unfolds in seemingly endless succession. This reaction is no accident. The mansion still does exactly what it was designed to do over a century ago: communicate power, permanence, and dominance through size alone. In this way, scale becomes one of the Breakers' most enduring and expressive features. European influence is woven into every surface, space, and symbol of the Breakers. From its architectural inspiration to its materials, artists, and decorative themes, the mansion was intentionally designed to echo the grandeur of old-world aristocracy. For the Vanderbilt family, Europe represented legitimacy, history, and cultural authority, qualities they sought to claim through design during America's Gilded Age. The architectural foundation of the Breakers is rooted in Italian Renaissance palaces, particularly those found in Genoa, Turin, and Florence. Richard Morris Hunt studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, and his training emphasized classical European traditions. At the Breakers, this education is evident in the symmetrical planning, classical proportions, rusticated stonework, and formal hierarchy of spaces. The mansion was meant to feel timeless, as though it belonged to centuries of noble lineage rather than newly acquired wealth. European influence extended far beyond style into physical construction. Many of the mansion's most important architectural elements were produced overseas. Entire rooms were designed and fabricated in Italy and France by master craftsmen, then shipped across the Atlantic and reassembled in Newport. Marble came from Italian quarries, decorative panels were carved by European artisans, and ceilings were painted by artists trained in classical fresco techniques. This global effort turned the Breakers into an international project rather than a purely American one. The interior decoration reinforces this old-world identity. Walls are adorned with mythological scenes, Roman gods, and classical motifs drawn from ancient Greece and Rome. These themes were not chosen at random. They symbolized power, order, and cultural superiority. By surrounding themselves with imagery associated with emperors and nobility, the Vanderbilts aligned their family narrative with that of European dynasties. Even the furniture and furnishings reflect European tastes. Chairs, tables, tapestries, and chandeliers were modeled after French and Italian originals, often using traditional techniques that had been perfected over centuries. Nothing was mass-produced, everything was custom-made, reinforcing the idea that the Breakers was not simply wealthy, but cultivated and refined. This European influence also reveals a deeper insecurity of the Gilded Age elite. American industrial wealth was immense, but socially young. Unlike European aristocrats, families like the Vanderbilts lacked centuries of inherited status. By importing European design wholesale, they attempted to bridge that gap. The Breakers thus becomes a visual argument. Wealth plus culture equals legitimacy. Today, this European influence is one of the mansion's most defining features. Visitors often remark that the Breakers feels more like a palace abroad than a home in New England. That reaction is exactly what its creators intended. Through architecture, art, and craftsmanship, the Breakers transformed European tradition into an American statement, asserting that the new world could command the same grandeur as the old. The Great Hall is the architectural and symbolic heart of the Breakers, designed to deliver an immediate and unforgettable impression. From the moment guests entered the mansion, this space communicated wealth, authority, and theatrical grandeur. It was not simply an entryway. It was a stage on which the Vanderbilt family displayed their power to every visitor who crossed the threshold. Rising approximately 45 feet high, the Great Hall is vast in both scale and impact. Its towering walls, massive columns, and open galleries create a vertical drama rarely seen in private homes. The room was intentionally designed to dwarf the human figure, making guests feel small in comparison to the wealth and permanence represented by the structure itself. This overwhelming sense of scale reinforced the social hierarchy of the Gilded Age, where architecture was used as a tool of dominance. The hall is constructed almost entirely of imported marble, much of it sourced from Italy. Warm tones of stone are paired with gilded accents, elaborate carvings, and classical detailing. Above, the ceiling is richly decorated, drawing the eye upward and emphasizing height. Light pours in from arched windows and reflects off polished surfaces, creating an atmosphere of brilliance and spectacle. Every material was chosen to signal luxury, durability, and cultural refinement. Functionally, the Great Hall served as the central circulation space of the mansion. From here, guests could move into the most important public rooms, including the dining room, music room, and salons. This layout ensured that everyone entering the house experienced the Great Hall first, making it impossible to overlook its grandeur. It was a calculated architectural decision. Status was communicated immediately, without words. Beyond its physical presence, the Great Hall also played a social role. During large gatherings, it became a space for mingling, observation, and performance. Guests descended the grand staircase in full evening attire, aware that every movement was being watched. In this way, the hall functioned like a theater, with architecture providing the backdrop for social ritual and display. The design of the Great Hall draws heavily from European palace traditions, particularly Renaissance courtyards and grand stair halls. These spaces historically symbolized power, hospitality, and control. By replicating them, the Vanderbilts placed themselves within a lineage of rulers and elites, reinforcing their claim to social authority in America's new aristocracy. Today, the Great Hall remains one of the most memorable spaces at the Breakers. Visitors often pause in silence, instinctively looking upward, absorbing the room's scale and craftsmanship. More than any other space in the mansion, the Great Hall captures the essence of the Breakers' purpose: to impress, to dominate, and to endure, as a monument to Gilded Age ambition. While visitors to the Breakers are often captivated by marble halls, gilded ceilings, and ocean views, the mansion's grandeur depended entirely on a vast hidden world of servants. Behind the elegance and spectacle was a carefully organized labor system that kept the household functioning seamlessly. Without this workforce, the lifestyle displayed at the breakers would have been impossible. At its peak during the summer season, the breakers required dozens, sometimes hundreds, of servants to operate smoothly. These workers included butlers, footmen, maids, cooks, laundresses, valets, gardeners, and stable hands. Each role was highly specialized, and hierarchy among the staff mirrored the rigid social structure of the Gilded Age itself. Every task, from polishing silver to delivering meals, followed strict rules of timing, silence, and invisibility. The architecture of the breakers was intentionally designed to keep servants out of sight. Hidden staircases, back corridors, service elevators, and separate entrances allowed staff to move through the mansion without disrupting the illusion of effortless luxury. Meals appeared as if by magic, rooms were cleaned while guests were absent, and fires were lit before anyone noticed the chill. This invisibility reinforced the idea that wealth operated without labor, even though the opposite was true. Servants lived and worked in stark contrast to the Vanderbilt family and their guests. Their quarters were functional and modest, often located in attic spaces or basement levels. Long hours were the norm, particularly during social events when staff might work late into the night and rise early the next morning. Days off were rare during the busy Newport season, and personal privacy was limited. Despite these challenges, domestic service at the breakers was considered desirable employment for many immigrants and working-class Americans. The wages were relatively stable, meals were provided, and the prestige of working for the Vanderbilts could lead to future opportunities. Still, the work was demanding and emotionally taxing, requiring constant discipline and restraint. The servant's experience also highlights broader social realities of the Gilded Age. While industrial wealth created opulence for a few, it relied on an underclass whose labor was largely unacknowledged. At the breakers, this divide was built directly into the structure of the house. Public rooms celebrated excess and beauty, while service areas prioritized efficiency and control. Today, the behind-the-scenes spaces of the breakers offer some of the most revealing insights into life at the mansion. Kitchens, pantries, and servant corridors tell a story that contrasts sharply with the grandeur upstairs. Together, these spaces remind visitors that the breakers was not only a monument to wealth, but also a carefully managed machine powered by human labor, largely unseen, yet absolutely essential. Although the breakers is often associated with old-world elegance and classical design, it was also one of the most technologically advanced private homes of its time. Beneath the marble, gold, and Renaissance-inspired decor lay a modern infrastructure that reflected the Vanderbilt's embrace of innovation and progress. In many ways, the breakers functioned as a showcase of cutting-edge technology at the end of the 19th century. One of the most significant technological features of the breakers was its fire-resistant construction. After the original wooden mansion burned down in 1892, Cornelius Vanderbilt II demanded that the new house be built to minimize fire risk. Steel framing, brick walls, and stone floors replaced wood wherever possible. This approach was revolutionary for a private residence and placed the breakers closer to modern commercial buildings than traditional homes. The mansion was also equipped with electric lighting, a luxury still uncommon in residential buildings during the 1890s. Electricity allowed for brighter, cleaner, and safer illumination than gas or candlelight. Chandeliers and wall sconces were wired discreetly so that technology did not disrupt the classical aesthetic. The result was a seamless blend of modern convenience and historic style, innovation hidden beneath elegance. Plumbing at the breakers was equally advanced. The house featured indoor plumbing, hot and cold running water, and multiple bathrooms, a rarity at a time when many Americans still relied on outdoor facilities. Sophisticated drainage and water systems supported the mansion's size and ensured comfort for both family and guests. These features emphasize that luxury was not just visual, it was functional. Heating technology further illustrates the mansion's modernity. The breakers used a central heating system, allowing warmth to circulate throughout the massive structure. Maintaining a consistent temperature in such a large stone building required careful engineering. Boilers, pipes, and vents were housed in service areas, again keeping technological complexity out of sight while enhancing comfort. The kitchen was another hub of innovation. Equipped with large-scale cooking equipment, refrigeration methods using ice, and efficient layout design, it supported the preparation of elaborate meals for large gatherings. Food storage, preparation, and service were coordinated with precision, allowing the household to operate like a well-run institution. These technological advancements reflect the broader Gilded Age belief that progress and wealth were inseparable. For the Vanderbilts, embracing innovation was a way to demonstrate leadership and modernity, while still surrounding themselves with historical grandeur. The Breakers thus represents a unique fusion of past and future. Today, the mansion's hidden systems offer a fascinating contrast to its opulent surfaces. They remind visitors that the Breakers was not only a symbol of tradition and excess, but also a forward-looking experiment in how technology could elevate everyday life. In this balance between innovation and artistry, the Breakers truly embodied the spirit of its time. During the Gilded Age, wealth alone was not enough to secure social dominance. Status had to be seen, recognized, and reinforced, and the Breakers was designed to do exactly that. More than a private residence, the mansion functioned as a carefully crafted symbol of the Vanderbilt family's position at the top of American society. Every aspect of the house, its size, location, design, and use, communicated prestige. Newport, Rhode Island, was the epicenter of elite summer life, and participation in its social season followed strict, unspoken rules. Invitations to the right homes, appearances at the right events, and associations with the right families determined one's place in the social hierarchy. The Breakers placed the Vanderbilts firmly at the center of this world. Hosting events there signaled acceptance, power, and superiority all at once. The mansion's architecture reinforced this symbolism. Its palatial scale and European styling immediately distinguished it from surrounding homes. Guests arriving at the Breakers were confronted with a residence that rivaled royal estates abroad, making it clear that the Vanderbilts belonged among the highest ranks of society. The house itself became a visual shorthand for wealth and influence. Social events held at the Breakers were equally important. Formal dinners, receptions, and balls were not merely entertainment. They were social performances. Guest lists were carefully curated. Seating arrangements reflected hierarchy, and etiquette governed every interaction. To be invited was an acknowledgement of status. To host such events was to command the social order. Inside the mansion, public spaces were designed for display. The Great Hall, dining room, and salons provided dramatic backdrops for social interaction. Guests were meant to be seen moving through these rooms, dressed in the height of fashion, surrounded by luxury. Architecture and society merged, turning social life into spectacle. The Breakers also symbolized status through exclusivity. Despite its size, the house was occupied by the Vanderbilt family for only a few weeks each year. This limited use emphasized that the mansion existed not for practicality, but for distinction. Its very inefficiency became a marker of privilege. Only the extremely wealthy could afford such excess. Over time, the Breakers came to represent more than the Vanderbilt family. It became an icon of the Gilded Age elite as a whole, symbolizing a moment when wealth sought validation through visibility and grandeur. Even today, the mansion carries this symbolic weight. Visitors recognize it instantly as a marker of power, ambition, and social aspiration. In this way, the Breakers transcended its function as a home. It became a statement, one that announced not just who the Vanderbilts were, but where they stood in the social order of America. As a symbol of status, its message remains unmistakable, even more than a century later. While the Breakers is often associated with male industrial power and inherited wealth, the mansion's identity and social influence were shaped just as profoundly by the women of the Vanderbilt. Family, their tastes, ambitions, and social strategies played a central role in defining how the house was used, decorated, and perceived within elite society. In many ways, the Breakers functioned as a stage on which these women exercised cultural authority in an era when formal power was largely denied to them. One of the most influential figures connected to the Breakers was Alva Vanderbilt, the wife of William K. Vanderbilt, Cornelius Vanderbilt II's brother. Although she did not reside at the Breakers itself, Alva's impact on Newport society and Vanderbilt culture cannot be overstated. She was a formidable social strategist who understood that architecture, decor, and spectacle could be wielded as tools of influence. Her success in forcing social acceptance for the Vanderbilts helped establish the environment in which the Breakers would later dominate. At the Breakers, women of the household controlled much of the mansion's social life. They oversaw entertaining, curated guest lists, planned events, and dictated standards of etiquette. These responsibilities were far from trivial. In Gilded Age society, hosting was a form of power, and women acted as gatekeepers of social inclusion. Decisions about who was invited or excluded could elevate or diminish a family's status. Women also played a key role in shaping the mansion's interior environment. While architects and craftsmen executed the design, women influenced choices in furnishings, color schemes, textiles, and decorative themes. Their preferences helped soften the mansion's monumental scale and transform it into a livable, if still extravagant, space. Bedrooms, sitting rooms, and private areas often reflected a more personal aesthetic than the formal public rooms. Beyond social influence, some Vanderbilt women were also engaged in broader cultural and reform movements. Alva Vanderbilt, later Alva Belmont, became a prominent advocate for women's suffrage, using her wealth and visibility to support political change. Her activism highlights a striking contrast. While the Breakers symbolized elite privilege, it was also connected, indirectly, to challenges against traditional power structures. Life for women at the Breakers was highly structured by expectation. They were expected to embody grace, refinement, and authority without appearing overtly powerful. Their success lay in managing households, appearances, and relationships flawlessly. Mistakes in etiquette or presentation could carry social consequences, making their roles both influential and restrictive. Today, examining the Breakers through the lens of its women adds depth to its story. The mansion was not only a monument to wealth and industry, but also a space where women exercised subtle yet significant control over culture and society. Their influence shaped how the Breakers functioned, how it was remembered, and how it continues to be understood as a symbol of the Gilded Age. Newport, Rhode Island is famous for its collection of Gilded Age mansions, often referred to as cottages, though few resemble modest homes. Among these grand estates, the Breakers stands apart as the largest, most imposing, and most symbolically powerful. Comparing it to other Newport mansions reveals not only differences in scale and style, but also in purpose and social meaning. Many Newport mansions, such as Marble House, Rose Cliff, and the Elms, were built to impress, yet each reflected a slightly different approach to wealth and status. Marble House, also built for the Vanderbilts, showcases French-inspired design and lavish ornamentation, but it is more restrained in scale. Rosecliff, known for its elegant ballroom, emphasizes social entertainment and grace rather than dominance. The Elms, modeled after an 18th century French chateau, presents refined symmetry and controlled luxury. The Breakers, by contrast, embraces monumentality. Its Italian Renaissance style, massive footprint, and towering interior spaces convey authority rather than elegance alone. While other mansions invite admiration, the Breakers demands awe. Its size alone places it in a different category, making it less a summer retreat and more a private palace. Another key difference lies in function. Some Newport homes were designed primarily for entertaining or seasonal leisure, with layouts focused on ballrooms or garden views. The Breakers was designed to do all of that while also reinforcing hierarchy. Its progression of spaces, from the overwhelming Great Hall to the formal dining room, creates a narrative of power. Guests moved through the house in a carefully orchestrated experience that constantly reminded them of the Vanderbilt's position. Construction materials further distinguish the Breakers. While many mansions incorporated wood framing beneath ornate finishes, the Breakers used steel, stone, and brick extensively, emphasizing permanence and fire resistance. This choice signaled not just wealth, but confidence that the family's status was enduring. Location also plays a role. The breaker's dramatic position along the Atlantic cliffs gives it a commanding presence unmatched by most neighboring estates. Its visibility from the ocean reinforces its dominance, while its expansive grounds provide a sense of separation from the surrounding social scene, even while remaining at its center. Together, Newport's mansions create a portrait of Gilded Age ambition, but the breaker serves as the benchmark against which all others are measured. It represents the peak of excess, confidence, and competitive display. In comparing it to other estates, the breakers emerges not merely as one mansion among many, but as the defining statement of an era when wealth sought to be unforgettable. Art and decoration at the breakers were not secondary embellishments, they were central to the mansion's purpose. Every ceiling, wall, and surface was treated as an opportunity to display refinement, education, and wealth. The house functioned as both a residence and a curated gallery, where art reinforced the Vanderbilt family's claim to cultural authority. Much of the decorative work at the breakers was created by European artists and craftsmen, particularly from Italy and France. These artisans brought with them centuries-old techniques in fresco painting, wood carving, stonework, and gilding. Entire decorative programs were designed in Europe and executed with precision, ensuring authenticity rather than imitation. This reliance on old-world craftsmanship elevated the mansion beyond American decorative norms of the time. Ceilings are among the most striking artistic features. Many are elaborately painted with mythological scenes, allegorical figures, and classical motifs drawn from ancient Greek and Roman traditions. These images symbolized ideals such as power, harmony, and civilization. Their presence reinforced the idea that the Vanderbilt family aligned themselves with the legacy of classical empires rather than mere industrial success. Walls throughout the mansion are clad in rare marbles, exotic woods, and richly patterned textiles. Decorative panels feature carved figures, floral designs, and architectural illusions that add depth and complexity to each room. Gold leaf is used generously but strategically, catching light and emphasizing key architectural elements. The effect is immersive. Visitors are surrounded by decoration rather than simply observing it. Furniture at the breakers was custom designed to complement each room's aesthetic. Chairs, tables, and cabinets were often inspired by Renaissance or Baroque models, crafted with fine materials and intricate detailing. These pieces were not chosen for comfort alone. They were selected to harmonize with the architecture and reinforce the room's formal character. Even functional objects were treated as works of art. Fireplaces, light fixtures, and door hardware were elaborately designed, often using classical motifs. No element was too small to escape artistic consideration. This level of detail reflects the Gilded Age belief that luxury should be total and uninterrupted. Art and decoration at the breakers also served a social function. They communicated education, taste, and global awareness to guests. Recognizing mythological references or artistic styles became a subtle marker of belonging within elite circles. In this way, decoration became a language of inclusion and exclusion. Today, the art of the breakers continues to captivate visitors, not just for its beauty, but for what it represents. It embodies a moment when art was used as proof of legitimacy and status. More than decoration, it is a visual manifesto of ambition, culture, and excess, preserved in extraordinary detail. The survival of the breakers into the modern era is not accidental. Like many Gilded Age mansions, it faced an uncertain future, as social structures changed and vast private estates became difficult to maintain. That the breakers still stands today, largely intact and open to the public, is the result of deliberate preservation efforts and a shift in how Americans value their architectural heritage. By the early 20th century, the age of extravagant summer cottages in Newport was fading. Changes in tax laws, economic pressures, and evolving lifestyles made it increasingly impractical for wealthy families to maintain such enormous seasonal homes. Many Newport mansions were sold, abandoned, or demolished. The breakers could easily have shared this fate. The turning point came in 1948, when the Vanderbilt family leased the breakers to the Preservation Society of Newport County. This decision marked a crucial transition, from private symbol of wealth to to public historical landmark. Rather than allowing the mansion to decline or be dismantled, the family acknowledged its cultural significance and opened it to broader appreciation. Preservation of the breakers required immense effort. Maintaining a structure of this scale, constructed of stone, steel, marble, and intricate decorative materials, is both technically challenging and costly. Conservation specialists work continuously to protect frescoes, repair stonework, stabilize interiors, and preserve original furnishings. Each restoration decision balances historical accuracy with long-term sustainability. Public access transformed the meaning of the breakers. Once a space reserved for elite gatherings, it became a place where visitors from around the world could engage with Gilded Age history firsthand. Guided tours, exhibitions, and educational programs allow guests to explore not only the mansion's beauty, but also the social and economic forces that created it. Opening the breakers to the public also shifted its symbolism. What was once a monument to exclusivity became a shared cultural resource. Visitors are encouraged to reflect on themes of wealth, inequality, labor, and ambition. Preservation, in this sense, is not just about maintaining a building. It is about preserving conversations about the past. Today, the Breaker stands as one of the most visited historic homes in the United States. Its continued relevance demonstrates the power of preservation to transform private access into public education. Through careful stewardship, the Breakers has evolved from a seasonal showpiece into a lasting historical witness, one that allows future generations to experience, question, and understand the Gilded Age in all its complexity. Beyond its historical and architectural importance, the Breakers has taken on a second life as a cultural icon. Over time, it has come to represent the Gilded Age itself, its wealth, ambition, and extravagance, making it a natural setting and reference point in popular culture. Through film, television, literature, and media, the Breakers continues to shape how modern audiences imagine America's age of excess. The mansion's cinematic qualities are central to its pop culture presence. Its grand halls, sweeping staircases, and ornate interiors create an immediate sense of drama, making it an ideal filming location. The Breakers has been featured in documentaries, historical programs, and period productions that explore elite society, industrial wealth, and the contrasts of the late 19th century. Its visual impact allows it to stand in for aristocratic homes, royal palaces, and symbols of old money grandeur. In television and film, the Breakers often functions as a shorthand for power and privilege. Audiences instantly recognize its scale and opulence, even if they are unfamiliar with its name. When shown on screen, it signals authority, exclusivity, and inherited wealth without the need for explanation. This symbolic role reinforces its identity as the definitive image of the American Gilded Age. The Breakers has also influenced popular portrayals of wealthy families and elite lifestyles. Its rooms, decor, and social rituals have inspired set designs and storytelling in period dramas that examine class division and ambition. Even when not directly referenced, the mansion's aesthetic shapes how fictional representations of old American wealth are constructed. Beyond screen appearances, the Breakers appears frequently in photography, travel media, and social platforms, where it is presented as a must-see destination. Images of its Great Hall, ocean-facing terraces, and ornate interiors circulate widely, reinforcing its status as an icon of luxury. In this digital context, the Breakers bridges past and present, transforming historical excess into modern visual fascination. The mansion's presence in pop culture also affects how history is remembered. While entertainment often highlights beauty and glamour, it can sometimes soften the realities of inequality and labor that defined the era. The Breakers thus occupies a complex space. It captivates audiences while inviting deeper reflection for those who look beyond the surface. Today, the Breakers endures not only as a preserved landmark, but as a symbol embedded in cultural imagination. It continues to represent wealth, ambition, and spectacle, long after the Gilded Age has passed. Through its ongoing presence in popular culture, the Breakers remains relevant, reminding audiences that history is not only studied, but continually reimagined. The Breakers is more than a mansion of stone and marble. It is a mirror of an era. Through its scale, artistry, technology, and social rituals, it reveals the ambitions and contradictions of the Gilded Age. It tells the story of a nation racing toward modernity, where immense wealth and innovation existed alongside inequality and invisible labor. Each room, hallway, and hidden corridor reflects a world built on competition, image, and power. The Vanderbilt family used architecture, culture, and spectacle to secure their place in history, leaving behind a structure that still commands attention more than a century later. Yet the Breakers also invites reflection. It asks us to consider who benefited from this wealth, who sustained it, and what was sacrificed in its pursuit. Today, preserved and open to the public, the Breakers has transformed from a private symbol of exclusivity into a shared historical record. Visitors no longer attend lavish balls, but they walk the same halls, stand beneath the same ceilings, and confront the same questions about success, excess, and legacy. In the end, the Breakers endures not because of its luxury alone, but because of the stories it holds. It stands as a reminder that history is built not only by ambition and achievement, but by the choices societies make about wealth, power, and remembrance. Thank you for exploring the Breakers.